Hello and welcome back to Database Management Systems. I'm Jivita Christie, and in this video, we are going to continue making the database that we were making in the last video. So we made two tables last time, employees and departments. In case you missed it, you can get the link in the description box. The next two tables that we are going to create are the project and the works on table. And after that, we are going to add foreign keys to all the four tables. So let's begin. What you see here is the schema of the projects table, where project ID is a primary key and everything else is having this data type, which is given here. So to create the projects table, we are going to write create table projects. And then the first column is project ID with character 8 data type, and this is a primary key. The next column is depth code with character 5 data type. Next we have description with variable character 200. Then we have start date, which has a data type date, and we have stop date with data type date, and revenue, which is numeric 12,2, which means that there are 12 digits totally, but after decimal point there are 2. And so before decimal point there are only 10. Now we close that and semicolon, and table is created. Let's describe the table and make sure everything is all right. So you can take a minute here and try to make sure that all these column names are correct and their data types are correct, so that you don't face any troubles later on while inserting data into it. So let's now go ahead and insert data into projects. So we are going to write insert into projects, and we'll mention all the column names one by one. So there is depth code and description and start date and stop date and revenue. And then we write values, and we'll mention the column names again with ampersand. So depth code, ampersand description, ampersand start date, ampersand stop date, and ampersand revenue. Now to insert the values, let's proceed in the document. You can see there are 4 rows given. So we are going to insert these exact 4 rows into this document, into this table. So the first one is emp happy, that's the project ID. Admin is the depth code. Description, employee moral. And the start date is 14th March. Date is entered in this manner. You will write the date first. Then in 3 letters, you'll write the month. And then you'll write the year. And this also has to be enclosed in single quotes. For null, we just write null without single quotes. And the revenue is 0, so just mention 0. It says 1 row created, so we can now go ahead and press / insert another row. This is ADT for MFIA. Depth code is ACCNT. The description is Mafia Audit. Start date is 3rd July 2003, so we are going to write 03-July in 3 letters, 2003, and single quote. The stop date is 30 November, so NOV, and 2003. And the revenue is 1 lakh, so 1 with followed by 5 zeros, and that's it. Let's insert the next row. This time the project ID is RoboSPSE. So Robo SBSE, and the depth code is CNSLT. The description of this is robotic spouse, and the start date is 14th March 2002. The stop date is null, and the revenue is 242,000, and that's it. Let us insert the next row. Here the project ID is DNLDCLNT. The depth code is CNSLT. Description is download client, and the start date is 3rd Feb. So we are going to write 03, say in single quotes, 03 Feb 2005, and stop date is null. The revenue is 18150. So that's it. Now let's take a look at the table. So the table, select star from projects. It looks like this. Now the reason why it's coming in this form is not your fault. It's just that for description we gave a really huge data type, a huge size of 200, and that's why it is coming in this manner. Even though we have not stored 200 characters, but it is still displaying in this manner. That's okay. You can take a look, and this is your first row. So you can understand from here and verify your data before we proceed, so that there is no problem later on. This is the second row in this manner, and I'm sure in your computer also you will be able to see it in this way only. So this is the second row, and then we have the third row right here, and then this thing here is the fourth row. You can see this is the fourth row right here. So that's it. The table is quite ready, and we can now proceed and commit this first of all, so that this data remains saved. Always remember to commit. So commit, and then we can proceed and create the last table of this database, which is the WorksOnTable given right here. This is fairly simple. There are only two columns here, but if you notice, then employee ID and project ID both together are a primary key. So we are going to design the primary key in a slightly different way here. We are going to write create table works on and employee ID with numeric 9, but I'm not going to do the primary key here. Then I have project ID with character 8, and I won't be adding primary key here. Assigned time with decimal 3,2. Now I'm not adding the primary key here because I will be adding the primary key afterwards here by writing primary key and in bracket mentioning employee ID and project ID together. This is the way in which you can create a primary key using several columns instead of just one. So if it was one, you would have just written it here. But because these are two columns, you have to write it like this. And then you can close the bracket, run it. It says table created. So let's describe it and see the schema of the table. It's perfectly fine. It matches with everything that we have described right here. Now let us clear this out and insert data into this WorksOnTable. So this is the data we are going to insert into this. It's right here. So there are about 6 rows, and we are going to insert all 6. So we will write down insert into WorksOn. There are only 3 columns. Mention all the column names here. Assigned time, and then values, and the column names once again with ampersand preceded by ampersand. So project ID and assigned time. Now let's insert. So 2 ADT 4 MFIA, then 0.5, you can write 0.5, that's also fine. /, let's insert the next row, 3, and then we have robo SPSE and 0.75. Let's proceed, insert the next row. This is row employee ID 4, and we have robo SPSE and once again 0.75. So this was number 4, third row. Let's insert the fourth row. The employee ID is 5. The employee ID here is 5. I'm just making sure I'm inserting the correct row. So yes, employee ID is 5 and the project ID is robo SPSE. And this time the assigned time is 0.5. So this row is inserted. Now the last two rows we are going to insert for that / again, and this is employee ID 5 again with ADT for MFIA, and this time the assigned time is 0.6, and the last row is employee ID 3, and this is the project ID, and 0.25 is the assigned time. Now let's take a look at what our table looks like. Select star from WorksOn. This is what our table looks like. There are 6 rows, and please take a minute to check the data that you have inserted, and only then you should proceed. Often I've seen people inserting 0 instead of O. So if you have, just check the O's present here, that they are not zeros. If you see some difference between one O and another O, then it's very likely that you probably inserted a 0 instead of an O. So just take care of that, and that's all we need to do. So the database is quite ready now. Now all we need to do is assign foreign keys, because we haven't given any of the foreign keys. So let's clear this out, and of course commit so that everything stays in the memory. Now let's move to the first table, which is employees table. In this table, if you go to this description, you will notice that it's given that the employee ID is it's given that the depth code is a primary key. It identifies which department the employee works for. So, and it's also given that it's a foreign key referencing departments.code. So we are going to add that now. To add that, you will do alter table and write the name of the table and write modify. And now just mention the name of the column, which is depth code, and then just write down references. And after writing references, just write the name of the column, which is the name of the table. It refers departments, and from departments, it refers the code column. So this should come in the bracket. So it refers the code column from the departments. And then just close the bracket, hit enter. It says table altered, which means the foreign key has been now created. The only difference that you will notice is that now if you try to insert some depth code in employees which is not present in departments, then there will be an error. You will get some error. Other than that, in the schema, you will not be able to see any changes. So I cannot exactly show you the foreign key. It has been created because it says table altered. The next thing we have is the departments table. In the departments table, the foreign key is manager ID. So manager ID is a foreign key. Let's clear this. Let's first create a manager ID as a foreign key. So we are going to alter departments and modify manager ID to be a foreign key that refers, it is given right here, it refers the employees table, employee ID from employees table. So we'll write employees and in bracket the name of the column. And once again, it says table altered. If at any point you are getting an error that the parent key is not found or parent key does not match or something of that sort, then please check your data, check the data that you have inserted. Because this type of error comes only when the data inserted is incorrect and it does not match. So if this manager ID, data in manager ID, does not match the data in employee ID of employees, then there will be a problem. And so I recommend that you check it. Next, I also want to modify, so just use up arrow key, and I want to make a primary key for subdepth of, which interestingly refers the table itself. It refers the same table and the column called code. So it's a very good database where there's also primary foreign key that refers to the table where the column belongs. And hit enter. Once again, table altered, and just check your data if there's any error over here. Now this is done, and the next table is the projects table. In the projects table, the depth code is a primary key taken from the departments table. So let's do alter table projects, and this time we are going to modify the depth code. So for the depth code, we are going to write references, and it's given right here that it refers departments.code. So from the departments, it is referring the code column. I forgot to write the modify option here, so you need to write modify. That's okay. And it says table altered. So this is once again done. One more foreign key has been created. Let's clear the screen. And finally, we are back. Now we are going to move to the last table, which is works on. This table contains actually two foreign keys, employee ID and project ID. So we are going to put both. We will write alter table works on modify, and employee ID must refer employees in bracket employee ID column, and also we want project ID. So let's modify that to project ID, which is referring the projects table, and from the projects table it is referring the project ID column. So that's it. All the foreign keys have been created. Don't forget to commit, and once that is done, then your database is ready. And please check everything in your database before you begin the next video, where we are going to practice some queries on this database. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.